Hi everybody! Today's lesson is going to be all about a review of equivalent fractions. So equivalent fractions are fractions that have the same value but different parts. So if I use a picture example and I have a picture drawn that's split into two parts and I wanted to shade one half of those parts, that would look like this. And if I wanted to shade the same value in this shape, so I'm still shading half of the shape, there's a different amount of parts that were shaded. So in this example, I would have 1/2 shaded. In this example, I have 4 parts shaded out of 8 parts shaded. So the same value is shaded, but there's a different amount of parts. So 1/2 is equal to 4/8. If this was a pizza, I'd be eating the same amount of pizza, except I'd just eat it in parts. Maybe I ate one piece every hour instead of a whole half of the pizza in one sitting. So now let's look at some examples without drawings. So in this case, I have two options I can do without drawing. I can either multiply or divide my fraction. Now looking at my first fraction here, 3/4, there's not a number that these two parts of my fraction have in common that I could divide them by. So I'm going to multiply. I'm going to multiply first the top part of my fraction, let's just say by 2. I could multiply it by any number to find an equivalent fraction, as long as I do the same on the top and the bottom. So if I multiply 3 times 2, that would get me to 6. Now whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. So I do the same thing. 4 times 2 equals 8. So 3/4 is equivalent to 6/8. Now let's do the same here. Let's say, well, I know 2 and 7 don't have anything in common I can divide them by, so I'm just going to multiply them again, let's say by 3. Whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. So 2 times 3 equals 6. 7 times 3 equals 21. So 2/7 is equivalent to 6/21. Now I'm getting to a number where both of these parts of my fraction can both be divided by 2 evenly. So I am going to divide this time. 6 and 8 can both be divided by 2 and come out with an even number. 6 divided by 2 equals 3. 8 divided by 2 equals 4. So 6/8 is equivalent to 3/4. Now coming down here to this last fraction, I know that 7 is a factor of 21. So I know I can divide these both by 7 and get an evenly divided number into the fractions. 7 divided by 7 equals 1. 21 divided by 7 equals 3. So 7/21 is equivalent to 1/3. 7 is 1/3 of 21. Now, in your practice today, you might see numbers or problems that look like this, where you have a missing number in your fraction that you have to figure out. So it's best to go left to right and see if the numbers increase or decrease when you read them from left to right. 8 increases from 8 to 16 down here. So now I know I'm going to multiply. Well, now I have to think. 8 times what equals 16? 8 times 2 equals 16. So now whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. 2 times 2 equals 4. I just found my missing number. And we'll do the same here. 1/5 is equivalent to 3 over what? Well, I noticed the numbers in the numerator increased from 1 to 3, which means they multiplied. 1 times what equals 3? 1 times 3 equals 3. So whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. So 5 times 3 equals 15. This time, if I look at 6 over 18 is equivalent to 1 over, well, 6 decreases to 1. So I know when I decrease from left to right, that means I divide. So now I have to think 6 divided by what equals 1? 6 divided by itself equals 1, which means I'll do the same on the bottom. 18 divided by 6 equals 3. My last example here, I noticed that the numbers decrease from 15 to 3 in the denominator. So that means I am going to, you guessed it, divide. 15 divided by what gets me to 3? 15 divided by 5 gets me to 3. So whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. 5 divided by 5 equals 1. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So one of your strategies for finding missing numbers, all you have to do is think about, am I going to multiply or divide to find my equivalent fraction? When you're looking at numbers on their own, trying to find an equivalent fraction, you want to see, do both of these numbers have something in common that you can divide them by evenly? For example, 2 and 8 can both be divided by 2 to find an equivalent fraction. Or we could multiply to find many different equivalent fractions. But 1 and 5, you cannot divide 1 and 5 and get an equivalent fraction, so you'll have to multiply. Typically, when you've got a 1 in the numerator, you can't divide anymore. All right, guys, that is it for my little mini lesson about equivalent fractions. I hope that you enjoy yourselves this week when you're practicing online with your Google Form practice, and I'll be there to answer any questions for you during our online office hours. Have a great Monday.